Carowinds is just one of those parks that's just perfect for a wishlist video because their coaster lineup is just so top heavy. They could really use a lot of help filling out the attractions towards the bottom of their coaster lineup. That being said though, this is still a wishlist video, so I am going to be a little ambitious. So let's dig into how I would improve this park. I have 5 main ideas I would like to discuss. The first one being a new family coaster for this park. I feel like Carowinds they have a decent family coaster collection. They have an off-the-shelf Wild Mouse with Ricochet. They got the kiddie coaster with Wilderness Run, and they got the old school wooden coaster with Woodstock Express. And you also have the classic Mine Train Carolina Gold Rusher. That was pretty rough from my memory of it, so I don't know if that's an ideal family coaster. It also didn't have a wait when I got to visit Carowinds. I'm not sure if it's the greatest. But either way, I feel like you could still add one more like modern family coaster to really round up their offerings. When we talk about family coasters, I have to mention a Gravity Group family coaster. I feel like that would be a really great fit at Carowinds. Yeah, you already have Woodstock Express, but I feel like the Gravity Group would be a step up from that. And the only other wooden coaster in the park is Hurler, which is not very popular at all for thrill seekers, and I'm sure it's too rough for families. So that would be great. I also wouldn't be opposed to a Vekoma family boomerang since Kings Island is getting one. I feel like that would also be a great fit at Carowinds. But obviously I would prefer the Gravity Group family wooden coaster. Moving on up to number 4, I feel like Carowinds could use another launch coaster. The only one that they have right now is Copperhead Strike, which is obviously their newest coaster as of now. And a lot of parks have more than one. So especially if they don't get a launched family coaster, I feel like a multi-pass launch coaster would be a great fit at Carowinds. If we want to go ambitious with this project, something like Pantheon would be absolutely perfect. As I mentioned, Copperhead Strike is the only coaster with a launch at Carowinds, and that ride doesn't have a top hat, and I feel like a lot of major parks have a coaster that includes a top hat. So a ride similar to Pantheon where it has the swing launch going up into a top hat, I feel like that would be a perfect fit at Carowinds. I just love top hats, man. They really stick out in the skyline. They're defining. They help give parks like an identity, you know? It's like there's the top hat coaster. In terms of airtime, I feel like a ride like Pantheon would be a lot more intense than the airtime found on Intimidator, now called Thunder Striker, or even Fury. For the most part, that's a lot of floater. So I feel like this Pantheon style coaster could have a few ejector pops, and on top of that, it would have some nice inversions. A stall would obviously be a welcome addition at Carowinds, or of course a slow-moving zero-G roll. That would be great, even though they already have the JoJo roll on Copperhead Strike. Really just any inversion that differentiates itself from the standard inversions on the B&Ms in the park or the inversions on Copperhead. And I feel like an Intamin multi-pass launch would be able to do that. Another attraction I have to mention are the compact Mach Extreme spinners. This layout just looks super interesting to me, and I haven't really seen anybody talk about it. Part of that is because no one has built one of these, but it looks like a solid ride, like on the same level as like a Skyrocket 2, but it looks more interesting than a Skyrocket 2. And I feel like this could work instead of the Intamin multi-launch coaster if we want to scale back this project. I feel like it would still be a great ride. And of course it would be a spinning coaster, which would differentiate itself from everything else that Carowinds has. Mach also has an animation where they have a switch track so that they can run 2 trains on it, which would be perfect for Carowinds. And one train is like a standard train, so just having the different ride experiences could be super cool and super unique. But at the same time, like after the opening year, I'm not sure if that would be like a gimmick that would wear off. Like would everyone just get in line for the spinning train, leaving the other train kind of useless? I mean, in a perfect world, maybe they could get 2 spinning trains and then have 1 standard train. And if it does get to that point, just sub out the other spinning train for a standard train, or just bring it back as a seasonal thing, you know? I don't know, it'd just be an interesting option to have because there aren't really any coasters that have something like that where you can experience it spinning or just standard. I mean, unless you're in Australia in the back row of a coaster. Moving on to number 3, I kind of feel obligated to put this ride on this wish list, but it's not something that I necessarily want. It's a B&M dive coaster. I feel like a dive coaster at Carowinds is kind of inevitable because Cedar Fair has been adding dives to all of their major parks. Like, I'm really surprised that Dorney got a dive before Carowinds did. And I just feel like the B&M model just makes more sense at a major park like Carowinds. It may not be on the size of Valraven or Yukon Striker, but I could definitely see it on the same scale as something like Emperor at SeaWorld San Diego. Or, of course, Iron Menace at Dorney Park. I feel like this would be a perfect supporting coaster at Carowinds because they definitely need a ride like that that'll just round out the lineup, because we do have a major drop in quality after the top 4, so that would help with consistency throughout the lineup. So in my opinion, it would be a perfect supporting coaster at this park, which is why it's not the most exciting idea, but it's still something, you know. I'm sure the park would try to push it as one of their best rides, but that just wouldn't be the case for a lot of people. Moving up to number 2, I feel like a full-scale wooden coaster would be great. In a perfect world, I would like a modern GCI just like Mystic Timbers. That would be a perfect fit at Carowinds. As we've discussed, the wooden coaster lineup at Carowinds is very much lacking. So if they just got an elite wooden coaster, it would just be perfect. And I prefer the out and back layouts like Mystic Timbers and Prowler over twister layouts like Gold Striker. So I feel like that would be a perfect fit. And it would bring more airtime to Carowinds, because as Carowinds stands today, the only rides that really have airtime are Copperhead Strike and the 2 B&M machines in Intimidator and Fury 325. So just having airtime on a wooden coaster would just help with that. It would definitely bring like a different type of airtime. Hurler has like one moment towards the beginning of the ride. It's outdated. And I feel like Carowinds deserves a ride like Mystic Timbers. That would just absolutely be a perfect fit there. But speaking about Hurler, number 1 is RMC Hurler. Now, this would be very interesting for RMC to tackle a project like this, because obviously they already RMC'd Hurler at King's Dominion. If they did RMC Hurler at Carowinds, would it just be a clone of Twisted Timbers? Which, I mean, I'd be fine with that because Twisted Timbers is amazing. Or would it be like a different layout using the same structure? Like, would they opt for a traditional drop instead of a barrel roll down drop like the one on Twisted Timbers? And maybe instead of back-to-back-to-back camelbacks, they go with the inversions on those airtime hills, you know? Or the idea that I'm proposing, which is to give Hurler at Carowinds the Iron Gwazi treatment. So build a completely separate lift structure. You would probably have to build the first 1 or 2 elements because they would be so much taller than the existing Hurler structure. For the rest of the layout, use the existing Hurler structure. I feel like that's doable. It is very ambitious, but this is a wishlist video, so that's the entire point of it. I feel like if you reverse the direction of the station, so you dispatch towards the brake run of Hurler instead of dispatching into that turn right away, I feel like you could build the lift structure facing that direction. So it would be parallel to the lift hill on Fury, which would be an amazing visual. Could you imagine that? An RMC Hyper Hybrid right next to Fury 325? That would be insane. And then maybe after that, build a structure like the first element on Air Force 1, the Raven Truss Dive or whatever they're calling it, and then have it go back towards the truss lift hill and maybe have a stall, and then maybe have it twist into the original lift structure of Hurler. You would obviously have to like reprofile it to fit like an airtime hill or something. But it would still be great. Even if they have to demolish most of the structure of Hurler, they could still use the footers. And from what I understand, that's what helped keep the price tag of Iron Gwazi so low, because they reused the original footers of the Gwazi roller coasters. So that would just be an absolutely amazing fit. Could you imagine a top 5 with Fury 325, an RMC Hyper Hybrid, Thunder Striker? I'm still not used to that name. Intimidator is such a better name, but whatever. Copperhead Strike, and then Afterburn, that would just be absolutely amazing. And if we go through the other 4 items on my wish list, I feel like they would really round out that supporting lineup. So yeah, those are my wish list ideas for Carowinds. Do you have any ideas of your own? Please let me know in the comments below. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you later.